Hi there, everyone. Philip, it's amazing to be here. And I just want to start by literally raising my glass to all the caretakers and all the doctors and everyone that has been out there on the front lines, taking care of us and taking care of our, the patients of this particular pandemic. And this is a very special situation for me, a special time for me to be able to talk to all of you and really provide the best that I can in a show. So I'm looking forward to it. Yes, so it's interesting because I started out, and I am in my heart a coach, an athlete, a physical education teacher, someone that is really into the physicality of things and helping people do their best physically. But very early on, I fell in love with the mind. I fell in love with the ability to literally change sometimes. I would say just one or two tiny little things and to allow people with that change to become so much more powerful in it, not just in their mind but their and in their everyday action. So what I love to do is really to be that mindset coach that really helps people to bring their best when it counts the most. They say so. I hope so. See, it was very interesting because for the longest time, I was being told that, oh, okay, so people don't want to be resilient. If you want to try to talk about this, people are not going to come to you. They're not going to. And I'm like, wait a minute. That resiliency is the key to survival. And it took us, and that's why it's funny because you asked me about this before, that how do I feel, what's going on? Personally, there are a ton of challenges that are going on in my life with caretaking and certain illnesses that are going on in my family. On the other hand, I'm finding myself so much in the center of what I was called for by this universe because finally people understand that the people will survive that are resilient, and resiliency have a bunch of different layers underneath it, and and you can build it up. It's not a genetic trait, it is something that we can learn. So gosh, I am in my element, and my everyday lives are showing it, I guess. I hope so. I mean, it was been, if you think about it, just one example out of the three, four, five, because every one of us, that's, I guess, at some point, we go through thinking, either thinking of writing about um, or what I call manifesto, why we are on this earth. Because if you thinking a little bit, there is a point in your life that you're gonna think about. It's like, why am I really on this earth? What is this whole thing is about? And I went through some of my events and some of my challenges, and I realized that um, resilience was a key factor for me to overcome. And it is something that I can teach, and this is something that I want people to learn. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's can I just go into how this whole resilience things can build up and okay, all right. So the way it builds up is, it again, it's not born with us. Okay, there is what is happens with us when we are born is we have basically the support of our parents, the support of our environment, hopefully the support of our environment that we are born into. But as we grow, in the moment we're getting a little bit older, a little bit older, and we're starting to explore the world, we are faced with challenges. And that's one of the things that I usually like to tell modern day parents is to let your child explore the world around them Don't protect them so much, because that exploration develops a level of resilience. They learn by exploring in their life. They learn what they can do, what they cannot do, how they can do it. There is an exploration that needs to take place. So that same exploration, are you there? Yeah, you can hear me? Okay. Mm. Well, that is the problem, is that we are trying, and I totally understand this. I just for full disclosure, I never had children. We tried, but we couldn't have any children. So I cannot tell parents how to raise their children. Okay. The only thing I can tell people is to make sure that they also kind of like look at how they were raised. And in the process of how they were raised probably with being allowed to explore things. So like now when I go on Facebook sometimes, I see all these pictures when children were literally like climbing through all kinds of dirt in the ground, and we, as my age group at age 50 or so, we are sharing all these things and say, wait a minute, our immune system built up because we were climbing and crawling through dirt sometimes. And this pandemic right now, it's one of those illustrations of how important it is to have a strong immune system that helps your resilience, physically at least. Elements. Hmm. Yes, exactly. And the funny part about this is that um, we have all these cliches flying around about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like I think it was Friedrich Nietzsche that said that back in the days. And if you think about these things, it is true. And this is time. This I really believe, and don't please don't take this the wrong way, but this is my first time in like over 10 years to say, wait a minute, I am in my element, because finally people are waking up to the fact that they have not just the responsibility, that's one thing, but they also have control over their own life. We don't have to give out this control over our own lives. And if you can take control of your mindset, of how you think around things, and you can take control over your emotions, you are going to, I'm not saying that you're going to be happy going through a pandemic, because God knows I'm not happy going through the pandemic and not being able to go play golf and not being able to meet my students, which is really the bread and butter of my life, is that personal interaction. But the point is, we can get through this and get through stronger, but you need to take control of your own emotions, your own mindset. And it's just a responsibility now that people are starting to wake up to. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yes, and it's a very good point, because what makes us and again, I don't want to sound like someone that knows everything, because I'm so far from it, that's not even funny. I am only speaking from my own experience. There are certain parts, I say maybe 10% of what needs to be discovered I discovered. The other 90, it's still awaiting for me for the next hopefully 50 years. But there's one thing that I discovered in this whole process, and that was about um, the ability that this is our ability, this is our choice. Please understand, it's our choice to think positively and or accepting of a situation, or think negatively about that situation. And this becomes our choice, and we are the only species on this world that can make that decision. And one of my favorite things of being stuck in some ways, not quarantine, thankfully, but in a lockdown down here in Florida, is when I look out on the window, I see every morning those ducks. And sometimes there's another duck family coming by, and they kind of like fighting out their territory. And once they're done with the fighting, they just literally go under the water, they shake it off, and next day they are back like nothing happened. And we can't do that. Somehow in our minds, we keep thinking about the past, we are projecting to the future. And this is the time during these specific challenging times, it's the moment when I say, okay, can we stop thinking about the past or the future? And can you just really be grateful? And if you would have told me this, Philip, about 15 years ago, that I'm going to talk about being grateful every morning for 3, 4, 5 things and just spend 10 minutes in a gratitude meditation. If you would have told me that me, the strong, committed, that I know I can control everything kind of a personality, that I'm gonna be resorting to meditation every morning for about 5, 10 minutes about gratitude, I would have told you, you're out of your mind, man. But it is what it takes, is to just every morning collect for ourselves what we have, not what we had, and not what we still don't have, what we do have. And that's what I do. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know who was like a year ago. I would have loved to see someone say, okay, well, my plans for 2020 is to try to figure out how the hell to live in a lockdown, in a pandemic. I don't think it would have it would have flown. You're right. It's just some, oh, absolutely. And they have their babies with them, and they line up in a row. They do oh, heck yeah, and they can do the show for me every morning if I want it. But my favorite was, no, no, we can't, and we could if we would be living in the moment like animals do. But we are living in the past and we are living in the future. It was so funny. I had just to share one experience. We had a situation in the university, and for those of you who don't know, I'm a university professor, and we had a situation in the university this week, and I'm not joking. Within 10 minutes, I had, I think, I don't know what, 30 text messages flying within 10 minutes about, oh my God, this is what's happening. I can't believe they're going to do this to us. They're gonna. Long story short, I wasn't replying. And after 10 minutes, there was another email being sent to everyone that, oh, this thing is happening to everybody as a structural, as some kind of a movement to make sure that the university somehow reclaims the multi-millions that they just lost. So it wasn't pinpointing one group. It was a structural thing, something that was coming down the pipe for everyone. So the point is, before you react, kaboom, right from your gut, responding to this, not even responding would be great, but you are reacting. And I'm doing the same thing. When I get something like this, there's still some triggers that get pushed inside me, some buttons. Just don't let this kind of button pushing happening, because in the middle of a pandemic, there's going to be like constantly somebody or something pushing your button. And every time that happens, boom, cortisol going into your bloodstream, and you're killing your own beautiful, healthy cells. But that's probably for another show. But that's okay. So Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I do right now is in response to this whole situation. Thankfully, I got a lot of people that are seeking my help, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm very thankful for it because this is the first time that I can really be sharing these things. And one of the things that I teach in one of my courses that I'm putting out right now on the internet as well is about this trigger tracker, the trigger elimination and the trigger tracker. You have to figure out what are those emotional triggers that are constantly pushing a button inside you. And I want to, ahead of time, ask for the forgiveness of my sisters. It's not their fault. This is what happens in families. In every family, we have certain personalities, and everybody is different because we are all created uniquely, our own. So, what is happening is that for years and years and years, because I was oversensitive, I was over emotional, we would go home to Europe, visit my father, and either my father or somebody else would always have this incredible tendency of pushing some button in me that made me cry and literally just break me down in a pile of tears, right? And maybe it's not tears because for some of you gentlemen out there, it's maybe not tears, but this may be still something that just grabs you in the inside and it's like suddenly stop you from doing what you were meant to do. Those are the triggers. Sometimes it makes you cry. Sometimes it makes you not stand up to what you believe in. Sometimes it makes you stop from the success that you were meant to do. Like you don't take that next step because there's some kind of a gremlin talking to you. And those are those emotional triggers and buttons that are being pushed. So about 5 years ago, we were coming home, and after when we would come home, there was always this time with my sisters that would sit down, and I love my sister. We are like this close. I mean, we could not be closer. So we would sit down and have dinner, and one of my sisters says, "Clara, what happened this 2.5 weeks? We couldn't even make you cry. What happened?" And I was like, "Well, I actually want you to try to make me cry." And it was like, "No, no, no, we don't want to make you cry, but you were so together." And I said, "Listen, if there is a trigger inside us that gets pushed, any buttons that gets pushed, it is our responsibility after this particular interview now that I am sharing this with you. This is your responsibility, it's my responsibility that if we have a trigger that gets pushed, a button that gets pushed, that we go and get to the bottom of it. Because if you don't do that, then for the rest of your life, you will never, ever have control over your own life. Do you want to do that? When you were a teenager, you didn't want to have your parents have control over your life. How come that you let your triggers and your emotions have control over your life now when you are 30, 40, 50? What you get to the bottom is you do the trigger tracker. Okay, so first what you do is you literally go daily, and I have an entire workbook for in this course for it, specifically designed to help. I mean, obviously I can't share everything right now in this hour because this is something that you do daily. It's about 15, 20 minutes of work. No big deal. It's simple, but you do a specific trigger tracker that you look for specifically every day. What kind of situation, what kind of persona, what kind of person is triggering, or what kind of either life situation or something that you're trying to do triggers that button inside you. And you literally go into that, you check for the emotion in there, okay? Then you use several of the techniques that you and Jane have taught me, okay? And those are the techniques that I took from you. I kind of made it my own because that's what we always do. That's the beauty of taking your classes, which I will never forget. This was the biggest gift that I could ever have, is to take your classes, because the way you taught us is that we learned from you how to make it our own as instructors and healers and therapists, right? So then you go into this trigger tracker, and I have like this 21-day emotional trigger challenge. And we go through in that 21-day, we cover everything in this world that held you back from success. And we just go in, we look for the patterns, and we find usually, I would say, 4 or 5 triggers, 4 or 5 buttons, what I usually call 4 or 5 buttons that every one of us have, and the situation is gonna push it, and we're gonna find it, and we're gonna neutralize it. Oh, well, it depends on, okay, so let's say in personal relationships. So, okay, everybody's triggers are, the beauty of this work is it's very individualized. But generally speaking, everybody going to have a trigger regarding not being good enough. Everybody's going to have a certain trigger regarding being a perfectionist. Everybody's going to have trigger regarding their family, something related to their family that they were not heard. That's one of the biggest triggers, that they were not heard. There's a variety of different triggers that that just gets literally described or come out and surfacing in a variety of different settings. So, like one of my triggers, and I'm proud to tell this because I think, the happiest to have overcome this is about 4 or 5 years ago. I was still noticing that when my any of my superiors, department chair, dean, or someone would call me or text me, and they would leave me a message and say, Clara, we need to talk. Call me. That was the message. I cannot tell you, kaboom, my heart, my gut was in a knot just because I am being told that I need to talk to them. But it was the fact that I didn't know why. And the first response I always got from myself was, oh my God, what did I do wrong now? And I was like, I this exact same set of words, what did I do wrong? And then, of course, I went back and, with my trigger tracking, and then, of course, with the emotional, the different techniques with our emotional tracing back and so forth, to figure out where this came from. And then I neutralize it, eliminate it. And now when I get a text message, I was like, okay, what's up? Yes, well, this is actually the PDF that I created right now is a fantastic, engaging, entertaining ebook on how to basically achieve success in a pandemic, and understanding why we are responding the way we're responding. So it would allow people to, from a biological and evolutionary perspective, also to understand why we respond the way we respond. Why do we feel so locked in? Why do we feel like that we lost our freedom completely? And why do we feel like so? Actually, to be honest with you, we feel um, uh, you know a sense of dysfunction, a sense of inability to respond, because we are being asked to stay put. And that's not our normal nature. Human nature of survival is not that, okay, everything will be fine. The government will take care of you. Everybody's taking care of you. You just stay locked into your houses or in your apartments. That's not what we are designed for. Humans are not designed for that. So that's, oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes. Demic success. Yes. Hmm. And also these are that's yeah, that's also a first part is kind of like an introduction to explain that it's not your fault to feel so um God, there is that really good word. Blah, 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 blah. I can't remember that really good word. I had a really good word for it. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll say it in Hungarian. No, I'm not. So the long story is, that's the first part, but the second part is, obviously, I give specific steps of success in there to make sure that you actually you can overcome it. And one part of it is something that I think more and more people now finally realizing how important it is a form of visualization that I actually kind of put together myself and use with my clients and my students. Sure, I'm happy to. So some of them I already shared, which was the trigger, because the trigger will be Yeah, that's important because like just think about it. Now that you are in close quarters, right? It's if you thought that your spouse or your children have triggered you before now, or I have some of my students because I was asking them of what the situation with them was. Some of them has 10, 15, 20 people in the same household put together now. Can you imagine that nobody of those 15, 20 people can go out, and you only have maybe four or five, or in my case, only two? We have it made. Imagine all those people together. But the point is that if you thought that things were triggering you during your normal life, when you could disappear and say, okay, honey, goodbye, I understand, and I'm going to go shopping now into the mall and meet my girlfriend, it's not happening now, right? So it's just, exactly the you can't avoid it. You have to, you absolutely have to face this thing now. So it's so funny because I said, okay, this is, if you can, one of the points that I try to make is, can you, and of course you can if you want to, by the way, can you make this shift in your mind to look at this experience that we all have right now as a from being a challenge or a trial, and change it into an opportunity for growth. And this is the essence of what I'm experiencing, because yes, it's only the two of us, but full disclosure, we have a really major challenge in our hands right now with my husband's condition. And can I reframe, and can he reframe this from a challenge to to an opportunity for the two of us to grow closer together, because there are going to be a lot of difficult times coming in our way. Can we just make this shift? And this is the most incredible thing that you can do by looking at those triggers. In the moment you get triggered, if you can realize that the trigger is not coming from the outside, it is a button that gets pushed in your inside. So it doesn't matter. It could be, Joe, John, Philip, it could be Susie, whoever. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. There is a button that you carry with yourself. And if you can somehow, when that button gets pushed, and your spouse and your children are the ones that are gonna know exactly how to push that button, because you already trained them, because you always respond. So they know. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that question, because I don't want to say it, but if you ask, and just for those of my own peeps, this was not a setup interview. Philip and I have just, we're just talking. This is not one of those situations. But yeah, so let me give you an example. Um, when somebody has a particular decline, physical or mental decline, doesn't matter. As a spouse who loves that person, what you're trying to do is you're trying to consistently keep them in the shape that they have been before. So you try to give them the same, okay, I want you to do this, or I want you to change the channel on the remote control, or I want you to make this phone call, or I want you to walk with me another 100 yards. The challenge in this situation is, where am I going to push too far, where I create in this person a sense of sadness that they can't achieve it, and at the same time, where am I not going far enough that I have a sense of guilt that I am not giving the best to this person. So this is the caretaking at this level is the finest dance that caretakers can make. And it requires also for you to have an incredible sense to know that when they say something to you and it pushes that trigger inside you, to never ever take that one seriously, because especially if it's a person that you're taking care of that has some kind of mental cognitive decline, most of the time they have no idea that they just hurt you, because it's also, especially later on in life, we know from the elderly that their frontal lobe is kind of breaking down a bit. So when their frontal lobe is breaking down, that means that they become really almost like mean. They don't have that sense of social norm. Okay, so you have to immediately, and I was teaching this to some of, yeah, it wears down. So just to be able to see that where is this trigger, where the comments coming from, it doesn't come from that other human, it's coming from a body or a mind that's breaking down. So it's very interesting. And the patience is incredible. And for someone like me who is a born boom 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 goer, for me to stop and say, okay, at 4:30 it's time off, it's family time. Which is also one of the, we have between, um, I don't even know how many techniques do you guys teach. You teach like millions of techniques. So out of those millions of techniques, I use about 5 or 6 that I put together in a particular sequence in my Winning Mind Blueprint for specifically for this type of anxiety. And there's 2 or 3 of those that I use regularly to put me back into that state of mind. Well, everybody knows. I think everybody who follows me know that I believe that. Okay, there. Well, there's some that is easier to talk about than others, but there's. Okay, give you an easy one. All right. Well, there's the EFT, but EFT is one that it's a little bit more complicated and it has millions of levers. So you kind of, in order for you to understand that, you kind of have to go through the courses, because it's just really good to do that. But oh, Andy says he can't hear me. Hold on. Oh, can't hear my guest. Ah, oh, that's maybe. Okay. Well, the main thing is, wait, I'm gonna let them too. The main thing is that you can hear me, right? Okay, whatever. But yeah, so the point was that there is one that is really I found it to be, for me, life changing, and I actually have that in the PDF. And it's kind of like an ebook, and it is about the ability to look at something that I feel a negative sensation about. So let's say I have a certain fear about something, okay, and I don't want to feel that. All right, I want to feel more of a positive feeling, especially nowadays, because we are bombarded with the negativity from the media. We are bombarded from all the different angles. So what I do is I close my eyes and I literally look for a sensation that I'm looking for. So am I looking for happiness? Am I looking for a sense of joy? Am I looking for content? What is it that I'm looking for? And that feeling of love, sometimes when, especially with, right now with my relationship, um with my husband now, I need a lot of love. Okay, it needs to come. So where was in my life an occasion, a situation where I felt a lot of love, like I was flushed with love? And I've literally draw it from the past experience. Now I do the same thing with success. So for those of you who are ready to break out, and those of you who are ready to rebuild, because this is what my group is about, resilience and rebuild. For those of you who are ready for that, look for that sensation where you accomplished something that fulfilled you, that like, I got this. Holy cow, I got this. I am good. Look for that sensation before you go into a new business endeavor or before you go into a new job interview. Many people are going to have to be going into some new job interviews, right? Many people are going to say, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I'm going to build my own business online because this was just one of those twists in my life. But it requires a lot of confidence. So, where was a moment in your life where you felt so confident that nothing could shake you? And go back into that sensation and literally flush your body with that sensation and go into the next one. Literally just implement that thought into the present situation. Hmm. Yeah, it's actually interesting what you said right now as far as the how can I see this as a potential growth. Um, well, in our lives, if you look back, any one of you who is older than 5 years old, okay, you can you can literally look back in your life and see where was a moment where you had to make a decision, where you had to make a decision to go right or you had to make a decision to go left or whatever it is. You had to make a decision to grow, essentially go out of your comfort zone, or you had to make a decision to stay in your comfort zone and wait for the storm to be over and then go back to your everyday things. What I love about what I see right now is I'm looking into Facebook and there's like millions of people now putting out their guitar playing skills, their DJ skills. They're putting out all those things that they were hiding and pushing down because they were kind of afraid that this may be not accepted or whatever. I mean, I love showing my gray roots. I love it because in some ways I'm like, okay, I don't mind being gray, but we are all adjusting to society's expectations, and this is the time for you to really go inside and figure out, hmm, if I was allowed to be me in the lockdown for 6 to 8 or whatever weeks, can I just stay like that for the rest of the time? Can I just be me going forward? It's just incredible. Exactly. Exactly. And that's if you it was funny because I listened to a lot of different gurus out there, and there's one guy that I really believe is a guru. And guru is and it's also, I'm not sure if we have the right definition of guru is, but the right definition that I heard from my read from my studies was that someone that literally just shows you the path. It's not someone that dictates some kind of a doctrine that you're supposed to follow. Exactly. It's someone that just shows you a path. And I love Sadguru because he is just said in some of his, he's doing the daily lives right now for himself, for his following, and it says just do 1 hour, 1 hour a day now if you can, obviously, but you can, because if you discuss it with your spouse, let's say you have children, you have to homeschool your children, it's incredible work. I get it. But let's say if you discuss with your wife and or your husband or your partner, whatever relationship you are in, I'm not judgmental of none. It's just love. Um, let's say you say, okay, I need an hour, just an hour, and that hour you spend literally do nothing. Just sitting, closing your eyes, and feeling. Just feeling. And start with 5 minutes. Just start with 5 minutes. But if you could work this up during this lockdown, you can work this up and say, wait a minute, there's just going to be such a connection with your true self that you can realize that you are so much more powerful than what a state tells you, a government tells you, a country tells you, your bank account tells you. It's just you are so much more powerful than that. And I just love that analogy, that whole exercise. Yes, I mean, oh, there are millions, because the fact that the America actually stayed inside for the majority of this lockdown, that is a resilient success story, because they understood. It's huge, and the respect that these Americans have shown towards the elderly, that have really is essentially, we are standing on the shoulders of our loved ones that are older than us, and for us to show that respect towards them, that what, I don't want to jeopardize your life if possible. Okay, that in itself is a resilient story. But the biggest thing I would really, it's more like a suggestion than anything else. It is going to be, the first part of every race. This is a marathon, okay? And I'm sure millions of people heard this, but let me explain it from an athlete's perspective. My sister ran the marathon. Rita ran the marathon. We were there. It was amazing. My longest race was a 30-kilometer race, which was 12 kilometers short of a marathon. But I can tell you that we are in a marathon. And in a marathon like this, we are now at that, I would say, maybe hopefully halfway point, even for the New Jersey and New York people. And in that halfway point is the one where we start to question, what the hell did we decide to do? Why are we still in this? Should we still be in this? Should we stay with this? Okay. And this is a decision making point for a lot of people. And I see that more and more people are going out and protesting and so forth. And I understand why they protest, by the way. Okay. I'm not going to go into this right now because this is not the show for it. So for those of you who are protesting, I get it. All right. But the point is that if you started hold on 1 second. If you started a race, you can't um, stop the race in 20 kilometers. This is a 42-kilometer race. So get whatever refreshes you, okay? Maybe a glass of wine, maybe a meditation, maybe it is a Gatorade, maybe just a ton of water, maybe a good run out in the neighborhood. I know you may not be able to go to the woods, but get whatever refreshes you. And again, reconnect with what was the reason originally that you allowed the world to shut you down and put you in a room, and make sure that you remember that original goal. And the original goal is to cross that finish line at mark 42 kilometers, so everybody can then open up, free up, and the elderly, the people that we have relied on, the people whose genes we are carrying, the people whose life and choices and decisions and advice got us to where we are, can continue to live and survive, including us, of course. Absolutely not. Yeah. The only thing I learned that no, not the only thing. There's a ton of things. So, oh God. So the offer the one of the things that we are putting out on the market within a week is something that has every single element of what I teach. But the most important part is honestly that you can learn the best. It really is that trigger elimination right now. And right now you can't really eliminate the triggers because you don't have the tools necessarily, but you can at least track those triggers and become aware. The awareness of why are you getting into a fight with someone, because I am also noticing, excuse me, through the news, a lot more of domestic violence and so forth and so on, and anger and all that stuff. All those are coming. They're not coming because your spouse or your child created it, or your bosses or your work situation. Like in academia, I've been a part of several Facebook groups where we are talking about academia and how to teach in these pandemic times. And everybody is constantly, always, 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 well, if that person would have done this and that person would have said, no, no, stop, stop. In the moment you start blaming anyone or anything, you give control away from yourself, because you are allowing them to control your responses. If you could just focus on this for the rest of this lockdown, to see that every moment you are about to blame, you are about to lash out. So wait a minute, just hold on for a second. That would be my biggest. I believe that would be the biggest gift that they and everyone could give to themselves and to their families. Yeah, exactly. Well, I really suggest for them to really read. This is a download that you can put up. It's a free download for everyone that's listening, the Bitly Pandemic Success. Okay. And I also, yeah, Pandemic Success, correct. But they can also find me in Clara Gubach in my Facebook, but they can also find me, and I would really look forward to having them in my Resilience and Rebuild Facebook group, where we are going to really build up your new self, the one that is not going to be able, nobody's going to bring you down. No pandemic, no nothing going to bring you down. We're going to build that one up. All right. Gubacs. And just for all of you, after all these years, I'm going to do something with Philip. I think he's gonna owe me a big bottle of wine, because my name is Gubach. That's how we pronounce it, but that's very hard for Americans. So Gubacs. You got it. You got it. That's no worries. Thank you. Bye.